Hey, good day. Welcome back. Thanks for watching my channel. This is part 2 of the front end suspension and rear end suspension. And I found a pretty good deal today shopping on Facebook Marketplace. This is a Ford Explorer 8.8 rear end, and I got it for a good price. So I am going to use that instead of the 51, the rear end that came out of the 51 pickup. This is beefier. It's got a bigger, certainly bigger housing. Gears are 355. There are some pieces I've got to trim off of here that I don't really need. And probably some that I've got to reconfigure. So, yeah, it's what I wasn't expecting was to get something with disc brakes in the rear end. So that's a plus. All right, we'll get back to it now. So here's everything I got in this kit from Speedway Motors for the front end suspension. I got everything unboxed and started to organize how things were going to go. And the first thing I did, the first thing that is needed is the Crossmember, and that was separate from the kit. I'll put part numbers and on the description below, so you'll know what I'm talking about. So the Crossmember came with these two shock mount towers, and then this Crossmember. And please excuse the horrible welding. It's strong, but it's just not pretty. The other main piece is the rack and pinion, and I got a power rack. So I'll use the power steering pump from the LS engine that I'm going to be putting into this. For the 51 Ford pickup, I needed, it was hub to hub on the stock was 60 inches or 61 inches, I forget now exactly. And so I needed to have on this rack, this new rack, I needed to have an extension. So what that extension really is within this, on this rod, there's another short piece that has to go in at about 1.5 inches to 2 inches wide. And this linkage unscrews at this point, so the extender is added right there and on the other side as well. So I loosely fit the ball joints. So they were part of a different part number, but so they're on. It came with these mounting mounts, but on this rack they're already there, so I don't really need those. But this was just the bushing so I've got spares. All the hardware is included, and part of that bushing extender package was another set of these boots. So I kept the original boots on. I just had to put on another zip tie. All the instructions are here. Instructions for the extension kit and then for the rack. Okay, so then the control arms, I took these out and I clear coated them. I decided not to paint them, but I wanted to put some clear coat on them. So what's included on the upper control arm are these T bolts, and those T bolts get mounted here. And I'll go through assembling all this stuff. So there's nothing special about these, about the upper control arm. But the lower control arm, it is a little bit different. This bolt, the coilovers are going to get mounted there. So that goes in here. Now, one thing to keep in mind was that the coilovers came with this sleeve for a smaller diameter bolt. This bolt that's on the lower control arm is a larger diameter, so you had to take out these C-clips, and that was a pain. It's unfortunate that you got to go through that trouble. I don't know why they just didn't ship it with those with the larger sleeves. But anyway, so that was one issue. On this control arm mount, this will go on the bottom of the rack. So had to weld in this metal sleeve and also this metal sleeve. So the control arm is going to go up like so. So this was used for more strength. You can see it a little bit better on that side. So these brackets, that bracket was part of the control arm on the lower control arm. The ball joints were all inserted and assembled already when I received it, but I'll go ahead and double check, make sure they're in there tight, and the upper. So I'm pretty happy with that. So for both sides, and I think it comes with some ball joint washers or spacers. Don't know if I'm going to need those yet, but we have them. Now on the coilovers, you have an option of different spring weights. This was the middle of the road. These are 500-pound rated, so that was fine. I'll see how it works out. I shouldn't have too much trouble. On the adjusters, these guys, they recommend putting anti-seize, Permatex anti-seize on these threads so that you don't have any gouging or any problems getting hung up. And then a thin layer on this washer. Actually, it acts as a bearing. And again, these sleeves have to be larger to fit onto the lower control arm. These have an adjustment for tension, so put it all the way to the negative side and you can crank it all the way negative, and so you could easily pull this out for inserting into the into the spring, and then attaching the lower and the upper control arm together. So that's that. It comes with these vibration dampeners, and instructions are not, these aren't that complicated, but you do have to register the serial number and the part number with QA1. I think the reason I knew about the sleeve was, well, I tried it for one, but then I saw another YouTube video of a guy assembling a system, a front suspension system for a Chevy pickup, and he mentioned that these sleeves had to be changed. The other thing that comes with the kit is I got 2-inch drop spindles. I clear coated those as well, and hardware for, so it's the king, or the castle nut that goes on the end of the shaft. So that's cool. Let's see. So the other things that I don't have up in the garage, and I'll take you down the basement, are the calipers and the brakes, and it has 11-inch disc brakes, or 11-inch discs. So here they are. This is 11-inch disc rotor, and I opted for the 4 3/4-inch spacing. And so you have an option of 4.5, 4 3/4, and I don't recall if it had 5-inch, but I got the 4 3/4. We have the calipers, and they came as bare metal. I painted these with caliper paint, and it's a single piston. It's a standard stock GM. Sorry for the lighting. It's just this light has not gotten bright enough yet. So you can see, standard GM caliber. And then we have all the hoses, hardware, mounting hardware. And a bracket for the calipers. I should clear coat these or paint them. Maybe I'll paint them. So it's a nice kit, and Speedway makes it easy so that you don't have to go selecting everything individually. But they do have the individual piece parts. Now here I also got a set of motor mounts from Speedway, and these are a universal mount for LS engine. So I believe it's gonna kind of look like this. That bracket mounts to the engine. This is going to have to be mounted to the frame, and I hope that, well, we'll have to modify it. It's universal, so it's going to have to be modified. And then the bushing for the motor mount. So, but that was extra. That was roughly $75. So the time to get it was when I had everything shipped, so I put it together. So that's about it. I'm going to start to put this suspension together. Whoa, I got my helper here today. He's gonna give me a hand putting this thing together. This is my favorite part. The dirty work is done. Well, not completely done, but at least this section of the truck. And we're gonna assemble the front end. So let's just get started. We'll start with the control arms. I've got the rack just set in place. It's not fastened, but we're gonna be using these 3/4 inch spacers. It calls for that, just for clearance issues. And I've got to put these hydraulic fittings in on the rack. Everything is still loose, so it's kind of ready to go. I put anti-seize on the coilovers, and I've got the sleeves, the correct sleeves in that'll fit on the bottom control arm. The vibration dampeners are on the oils. I did have a chance to clear coat all these parts, and I'll probably hit them with clear coat again once they're on the truck. So let's just get started putting this thing together. All right, since I have the rack kind of set here loose, I might as well just bolt it in. And remember, I put in these 2-inch extenders. It calls for that in the instructions for these tie rods. So again, I love this part of the job because the grit and the dirt is finished for the time being, and I don't know, it's like adults with Tinker Toys or Legos, or just assembling this stuff is just fun, in my opinion. All right, we're gonna have to get some wrenches. Yeah, let's see. All right, an adjustable on the back side of the nut. And this might be easier. Awkward. So earlier I was working on the rear differential, the 8.8 that I bought a couple days ago. I started tearing off some of the old fittings, old hoses that I wasn't going to use. I removed the discs, and they were kind of stuck in there from the parking brake pad. So I had to loosen the parking pad adjuster. But we'll get to more of that later. I'm going to get the power washer out sometime this week. Power wash it. And get it cleaned up. And I've got to cut off a couple mounts that were used for, it was a stabilizer bar. And that rear end came out of it was a 2000 Explorer. So we're not going to use the same stabilizer bar. I'm not sure I'm going to use a stabilizer bar at all. But all right, let's see what we do here. I think we need a smaller wrench to get into that pocket. The bushings were already inserted into the rack, but the kit from Speedway also came with a set, so I didn't quite understand why they included another set of bushings, but they did. Torque this down to something reasonable. Let's see. Yeah, that's about 110 pounds. These are nice lock nuts, so they're not gonna work their way off. Ugh. Maybe that was about 115 foot-pounds. Okay. And let's get the lower control arm. There's not enough room. Well, there sort of is, but this boot gets in the way of the head of the bolt, so we'll go in from this side. I've got to still have to cut off this leaf spring mount. Alright, well, I guess we're going to go to this side and deal with this. Maybe what I might do is just put a little bit of grease so it doesn't squeak on these bushings to the frame. Let's see. Just some good old red grease. Just a little coating. We need this out anyway when we pack the bearings for the spindles. Could have used anti-seize also, but this grease works fine. Let me get the proper tool for this job. There we go. Nice. Very nice. What a world of difference from the old suspension on this thing. Front leaf springs with a straight axle isn't the right combination for me. it would make a nice setup for a gasser. And I still have the straight axle and those leaf springs. If anybody's interested in buying them, make me an offer because I can't use them. I just want to get them to a point where we're snug. Beautiful. All right. Okay. Leave that on there for now. We're not ready. All right, so the top control arm has these T-bolts, and they're kind of cool. It's a cool design because the T-bolt will insert into the slot and turn, but it's locked because of this shoulder is tapered. I don't know if you can see that. It's got a taper shoulder. And so that'll lock here on the frame. And then also the mounting hole is kind of like a football shape, so that will also grab and lock. Let me show you from this side. I think it'll. Yeah, so this side down towards mounts to the frame, and let's give her a shot. So it's locked, and the T is running lengthwise that way. Just go loose with that. All right, so on this frame, I did not take off this brake hose bracket, and it is in the way. For now, I'm gonna just bend it down. We'll deal with that later. I don't know if I'll have to remove it or if it's going to be useful or not. I might. Use the adjuster tool. Yeah, that'll clear. It's still there. I don't know. We'll see if it's going to work out. Spray some paint here. If we do keep it right here. a little bit of rust we gotta deal with. And some grime. All right. So this will slide in or out, and that will be the adjustment for the camber, or at least the top of the wheel, in or out. So these guys are pretty tight, and I did not put any grease on these. Snug these up. I'll set them up in the middle, roughly. When we line up do the alignment, these are going to be changing. Just a little snug, that's all. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the coilover on. Coilover. Make sure that we put this adjuster on the outside, kind of like so. And we need a floor jack to, once we get this on and set in there, you might need a floor jack to push the control arm up so it can finish attaching everything. But we'll get the bottom attached first. These have a little edge to them. See that one's larger than this. So I believe that larger one's going to mount to that, like so. And this has to get switched around. Like yay. And let me turn this all the way to negative so that so you can open and close the piston. Think there's any particular way we've got to put the spring on. It's just that the taper, the narrow taper, is on the bottom to match the mount of the coilover. But as far as how it's spun, there's a flat surface at the top, and it just doesn't matter. So that goes more like that. Very nice. And that is a little snug, so let me see if I can pull this piston out further. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're still going to need the floor jack. That doesn't feel like does not feel like the spring is seated in the pocket all the way. Alright, I think the trick is to get this shock mount, put that in. The diameter of this pocket is just slightly larger than the inner diameter of the dampener. So I think that's got to go in there first. Yeah, now it's should be seated all the way up. Let's try that. Yeah, much better. So then this bushing goes on the top. All right, I do need to get the floor jack so I can just lift it another, I don't know, inch or so. Be careful not to lift the control arm on the nipple of the ball joint. So I'm going right underneath this spring. Yeah, that's just enough to get it started. Nut started. Okay. so it's gonna be, this has to be tightened down, but it's centered and it doesn't feel like it's binding. These guys have to be tightened up. Alright, and so squishes that a little bit. I'm going to put another nut on there as a lock nut. I forget to hear my wife cheering. She's watching the Ravens football game. And I think they're doing well against Seattle. Alright, then we get the spindle. And then we'll tie in the rack and see how that lines up. There is a left and a right side. They don't have them marked, but it is obvious which one goes on the driver's side. I believe it is this one, because then the control arm or the steering goes like so. And it doesn't make sense to have, get in here closer. It doesn't make sense to have this side unless it's going to be very high, which I don't, that might be right, I'm not sure. You know what? And the directions, there are no instructions, but let me just try this one and see if it makes sense. It all depends if the rack should be, you know, the connection up or down. Let's see. cotter pin out. Okay. Alright, so the boot, its little washerly, or at least the kind of a washer to keep the boot in place. I don't think the boot has a lip or anything that seals, it's just pressure. Okay, let's see if this works. Is this the one? So we got it backwards. This shaft of the ball joint, isn't it? Why? Same thickness for the top and bottom, but this ball joint doesn't look right here. There's a sleeve, and I don't think that looks. It's tapered, but it's a severe taper, and it's much larger than these holes on the spindle. Let me check the other lower control arm ball joint. Is that? Yeah, it's the same thing. Oh, all right. I think it's just jammed. That one was loose. There we go. This is better. That's the right kind of taper. So, is that going to set on top? Let's see. I think this is the guy. Yeah, looks better. And I guess that's a spacer or washer. But we also have washers for the ball joints. Let's just see. Alright, that is correct. So we're going to need a washer, spacer. I'm going to try it with the washer in. If we can't get the castle nut to go far enough down onto the bolt and get the cotter pin in, and we'll have to take out these spacers. But for now, just give it a shot. before I do that, I'm going to put anti-seize on these ball joint shafts. Because the next guy that wants to take these off won't be fighting, cursing. It just makes it a lot easier to disassemble. Put a dab in there. Okay. And I'll do the same on the bottom. Okay. What are these? Oh, first choice, correct. 7/8 inch. Well, I think I better put that spacer in there. I didn't do it on the bottom. Did on the top. Spacer, washer, whatever you want to call it. It looks like a thick washer.